When we hear the phrase unsolved mystery, we think of fearless archaeologists in the vein of Indiana Jones, dedicated researchers and the classic TV or movie mystery genre. However, there are times that these so-called unsolved mysteries do finally get solved. Some of them were solved years ago but are still purported to be unexplained. And while the explanation for the mystery is hardly as dramatic as the mystery itself, it can still be interesting, if not more so because it's the real thing, not just fiction. Let's delve into these 6 most famous historical mysteries that may have finally been solved. Number 6. What happened to the Franklin expedition? English explorer Sir John Franklin set sail for Canada with 128 men and 3 years' worth of food in 1845. His goal was to find an Arctic route that connected the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, what is now known as the Northwest Passage. Instead of finding the passage for themselves, Franklin and his crew simply vanished. Over 30 expeditions were launched in the hopes of finding them, but all these efforts resulted in a death toll that was much greater than the lost crew Franklin was leading. Several years later, in 1859, skeletal remains were found. Among the remains was a ship's log that stopped in April of 1848. Franklin's ships had become stuck in the ice, and the crew spent around 2 years attempting to free themselves. After 23 crew members and Sir Franklin himself died, the rest of the crew began a doomed march along the Canadian tundra, hoping to find civilization. They never did, and the remains indicate some of them turned to cannibalism to stay alive for as long as possible. So, what caused the tragedy? A Canadian anthropologist called Owen Beatty conducted a study in the 1980s which concluded that the explorers didn't succumb to either the cold or their hunger. Rather, the crew were killed by diseases like tuberculosis, contaminated food, or poisoned by the high lead content in the tins of food. Another part of the mystery was put to rest in 2014 when a Canadian robotic submarine found what remained of one of Franklin's ships under the Arctic ice. Number 5. What caused the Tunguska blast in 1908? A fireball soared through the Siberian sky on June 30th, 1908, and was soon followed by an incredibly powerful explosion that levelled over 770 square miles of remote forest. The event was named the Tunguska event after a nearby river, and it was calculated that it released an amount of energy roughly 1,000 times greater than that of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. This led to some fantastic theories about the event, including several scenarios involving UFOs or antimatter. Others believed that the Earth was hit by a comet, although given that comets are essentially giant balls of ice, and after so many years would not have left that much of a trace. A team of Italian researchers in 2007 used acoustic imaging to find the crater. It turned out that it was in a lake around 5 miles north of what scientists believe was the impact point. According to a 2013 article published in Planetary and Space Science, Ukrainian researchers were able to prove that Tunguska was indeed a meteor. They analysed a range of samples of peat dating back to the summer of the incident and found that they contained fragments of minerals typically found in meteorites. They also found lonsdaleite, a substance that forms from the shock waves after an explosion. The most significant evidence was the fact that the combination of all of these elements was almost identical to what had been witnessed after a meteor impacted Arizona in the United States about 50,000 years ago. Number 4. The flight of Barry Troy. It was February the 25th, 1958, when Lieutenant William Thomas Barry Troy of the Royal Canadian Navy was flying his F-2H-3 Banshee to the Naval Air Station at Mayport, Florida. For some reason or another, the 29-year-old pilot would leave his four-plane formation and never be heard from again. While Troy was missing and presumed dead, search crews could only find his helmet and a wheel from the aircraft. Things changed in 2017 following Hurricane Irma, which is on record as being one of the most devastating storms ever. It caused massive destruction, killing over 100 people and causing tens of billions of dollars in damages. It also helped to shed some light on the 59-year-old mystery of what happened to Lieutenant Troy. A park ranger working at Hanna Park in Florida saw some debris wash ashore. After inspecting the debris, he saw that it contained a parachute rigging with Lieutenant Troy inscribed on the harness. The most likely scenario is that the parachute was buried under sand dunes and had been there for decades before the hurricane brought it to the surface. The parachute looked like it had never been deployed. Despite the appearance of the chute, we're still yet to discover any human remains or substantial pieces of the aircraft. So we still don't know if his plane came down in the same area. Number 3. What caused the Hindenburg explosion? The Hindenburg came with a lot of promise. The airship, packed full of hydrogen, was said to be able to cross the Atlantic Ocean in half the time it would take an ocean liner. Tragically, this would never be tested when the Hindenburg exploded in flames as it prepared to land at Lakehurst, New Jersey in May 1937. 35 of the 100 passengers on board the airship died. Scientists have been debating the reason for the explosion for decades. We know that a spark ignited hydrogen that was leaking, but we didn't know what caused the spark or the leaking gas. Theories about the incident include explosive properties of paint, lightning, and even a bomb. A team of experts ruled out other theories in 2013 and determined that the Hindenburg had become charged with static electricity caused by thunderstorms. The hydrogen leaking into the ventilation shafts was caused by a broken wire or a faulty gas valve. The hydrogen was then ignited by a spark of static electricity, which caused the fire in the tail section, thus leading to the explosion. British aeronautical engineer Jim Stansfield says, "I think the most likely mechanism providing the spark is electrostatic. That starts at the top, then the flames form our experiments, blowing up or setting fire to scale models of the airship. We would have probably trekked down to the centre with an explosive mixture of gas that gave the whoomph when it got to the bottom." Number 2. Was the Umbrella Man involved in the assassination of JFK? There are lots of mysteries surrounding the 1963 assassination of US President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, and one of the biggest mysteries, outside of who actually did the assassination, was the presence of the man dubbed the Umbrella Man. This figure can be seen in photographs raising an umbrella along the route the presidential motorcade was taken, even though the sky that day was perfectly clear. Some saw the man as proof of a conspiracy, suggesting his umbrella was a signal for the sniper to take the shot. Others felt that he may have been the assassin in question, firing a poisoned dart at the president from his parasol. When the JFK investigation was reopened by the US House of Representatives in the late 1970s, a 53-year-old warehouse manager from Dallas called Louis Stephen Witt came forward and testified to being the Umbrella Man. That being so, the explanation the man gave for the umbrella is somewhat bizarre. Witt claims that he disliked JFK's father, former US Ambassador to the United Kingdom, Joseph P. Kennedy, and his dislike stems from the older Kennedy supporting British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain in his appeasement of Hitler during the Second World War. Chamberlain's trademark was holding an umbrella at all times, and so Witt chose to brandish a large and conspicuous umbrella of his own to send a hidden message to the president. Witt would bring a visual aid with him to the hearing, a battered and worn black umbrella that he claimed was the one from the day of the assassination. A committee staffer opened the umbrella and inspected it, showing that there was no weapons hidden inside. Witt has something of a sense of humour about the event, saying, "But if the Guinness Book of World Records had a category for people doing the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place, I would be number 1. Number 1. Has the disappearance of Amelia Earhart been solved? A recently unearthed photograph may hold the key to solving the mystery of what happened to missing American pilot Amelia Earhart. Earhart was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, but has also become famous for disappearing while attempting to fly around the world over 80 years ago. The US declared her dead 2 years after her disappearance, alleging that she'd probably crashed somewhere in the Pacific Ocean when her plane ran out of fuel. There is now evidence to suggest that she had survived her plane crash and actually died as a Japanese prisoner. A photograph has been discovered by the National Archives that appears to show a woman who bears a resemblance to Earhart and a man who looks like a navigator, Fred Noonan, on a dock in the Marshall Islands. Historians believe that the picture, which is labelled Jaluit Atoll, was taken by an American spy in 1937, the year that Earhart disappeared. Ken Gibson, an expert in facial recognition, suggests that the photo hasn't been edited in any way and is very likely a picture of Earhart and her navigator. The woman in the photo is wearing pants and has her hair cut short, two characteristics that the pilot was known to have. While the woman looks like Earhart, the man in the picture is said to look more closely like the missing Noonan that the woman does to Earhart. The hairline is the most distinctive characteristic. It's a very sharp receding hairline, and the nose is very prominent, Gibson said. It's my feeling that this is very convincing evidence that this is probably Noonan. The photo also reportedly depicts the Japanese ship Koshu towing something that appears to be around 38 feet long, which is the same length as Earhart's plane. Executive producer of the TV special looking into the disappearance of Earhart, Gary Topinian, says that we believe that the Koshu took her to Saipan off the Mariana Islands and that she died there as a Japanese prisoner. NBC says that Japanese authorities claim they have had no records of Earhart ever being in their custody. The photograph isn't the only recent clue that has brought scientists closer to solving the mystery of Amelia Earhart. The International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery recently sent bone-sniffing dogs to Nikamororo, an area in the Phoenix Islands in the Central Pacific Ocean, to search for the remains of Earhart.